record on this computer. And here we go. Welcome to Advanced Toastmasters Online. Here are some meeting tips. Use a headset or earbuds. When you're on it, helps with the feedback. Mute your mic when you're not speaking. That's in the lower left-hand corner. And you can also toggle your video on or off if you need to. And also, please do not do the share screen button unless you are actually a speaker and you are sharing the screen. And you can use this chat button here to send messages, questions, notes for the speakers or for anybody, but do it privately. Send it to them privately. And please only do that like in between the speaking roles. This meeting will be recorded. It's our policy that by participating in our meeting that you agree that the recording will be available publicly on YouTube and on our website. If you need something to be edited out, that's not a problem. Just let me know. If you want to join the club, if you haven't already, just go here and it says join club. It doesn't say quick start, but it will be the link right beside the login link. You just click on that and it'll take you through the steps on joining our club. And we will say hello at some point. And at this time, I'm going to put my gavel down and pass it over to our Toastmaster of the day, Andrea Sanger. And turning it over to you, Andrea.
Thank you, Dawn. Everybody who's out there, remember to mute yourself unless you are speaking. That would be helpful. We are an advanced Toastmasters club which supports Maverick leaders to have more impact by providing advanced feedback on leadership skills and discovering what it means to be out-of-the-box, innovative leaders. Today our theme is, Spring Fling. So be thinking about what that might mean. And the word of the day is biophilia, a love of life and the living world, the affinity of human beings for other life forms. I am the grammarian to the day as well as a Toastmaster, so I will be counting your ums and ahs and so's and those things if I remember. And at the end, I will report back to you on that. Our timer for today is Pamelah. Can you tell us what you're going to do? You're muted.
Yes, I know. I've been trying to unmute. I can tell you what I'm going to do today. My role as timer is to time the speeches, the evaluations, and table topics. Both speakers are asking for 7 to 9 minutes, 7, 8, and 9 on the first part of their speech, and Jim has an extra 2 minutes. Table topics are 1 to 2 minutes, green at 1, yellow at 1.5, red is 2 minutes. You have 30 seconds to complete. And our evaluators are 2 to 3 minutes. So you get green at 2, 2.5 for the yellow, and red for 3 minutes, and you have 30 seconds to complete.
Thank you, Pamelah. Thank you. Great. I'm going to jump right in since our speakers are speaking a little bit longer today. And our first speaker today is Tricia, and she is working out of her first advanced manual, and she's going to be speaking out, doing a story. And Tricia recently discovered she'll be an area director this coming Toastmaster year. This has spurred her to attempt her DTM under the traditional program before 6/20/20. That sounds kind of weird that we're already almost at 6/20/20. Today, she begins her first advanced manual, which I already said, and she will be telling a story, The Tale of Two Tales. Thank you, Tricia.
Fellow Toastmasters and guests, are you, like me, do you tend to have to learn lessons the hard way? Well, today I'm going to share 2 stories on some creatures that may have had this problem. The first story is about Tracy the squirrel. Tracy was so excited because this was going to be his very first harvest of the corn. He had been attending lectures and lessons all winter long to be prepared for how to gather the corn, bring it back to the tree, and deposit it for later so that they had a store for winter. Now, the night before the harvest, they had to attend one last lecture, and his great-grandmama was going to be leading this lecture. He went begrudgingly because he had heard this particular lecture all of his life. Grandmama slowly enters the room and she tells the squirrels, beware while you're gathering your corn or nuts to watch out for corn greed. It will hit you and you will forget not to stuff your mouth so full that you have no room to breathe. You will not be able to run from Mr. Fox or Mr. Hawk. Tracy just put away this information because he had heard it so many times before. Of course you don't fill your mouth so full that you can't breathe. He knows this information. He's heard it all of his life. So the morning of the harvest, he gets up really early and hops over the tree to the cornfield, from cornstalk to cornstalk, and starts gathering the harvest of the corn, putting the corn in his mouth, hopping back to the tree, depositing it. He was doing so well until he reached the fourth stalk. And he thought to himself, why am I taking all this extra time just filling my mouth so full? If I just put 3 or 4 more kernels, I would be able to finish this much faster. But he didn't realize that he was under the influence of corn greed. So he stuffed and stuffed and stuffed his mouth so full they could just barely breathe, and started hopping back to the tree. But out of the corner of his eye, he saw the tail of Mr. Fox. And he froze, hoping that he wouldn't see him. But he did. He started shooting an arrow right towards him. So Tracy started running jumping on the corn, trying to get to the tree. And just as he finally took that last leap, Mr. Fox bit onto his tail. Tracy, without taking another second, turned and spit the corn right into Mr. Fox's eyes. And Mr. Fox bit down so hard on his tail that it separated. Mr. Fox ended up with a little bit of fluff, and Tracy learned a very expensive lesson. My next story is to tell you about Mr. Black Bear. Did you know that once upon a time, black bears had a long, luxurious tail? Do you know what happened to it? Well, let me tell you. Mr. Bear woke up early one winter. The ground was frozen. There was no food to be found. And he knew he still had to go back to sleep till spring. But he was so hungry, he couldn't go back to sleep. He was, go to the river. Perhaps the ice is thin and I can catch a fish. He went over to the river, but alas, it was frozen solid. Dejected, he decided he was just going to have to go home hungry. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Mr. Fox. And Mr. Fox had a long line of fish. He was so excited, he started to head towards them. Now, Mr. Fox saw Mr. Bear coming and knew he was going to try and steal his fish. So he called out to the bear, "Hey, Brother Bear, are you going fishing? I bet you can catch twice as many fish as I did with your long tail." Mr. Bear looked at Mr. Fox in confusion. "Fishing with my tail?" Mr. Fox said, "Yeah, let me show you." So he went out into the middle of the river, cut a hole, and told Mr. Bear, "Stick your tail in the hole. The fish will bite onto it, and once you feel like you've got enough, stand up real fast and twist as hard as you can. And you'll end up with a catch of fish much larger than I." So Mr. Bear decided to try this. He sat, put his tail in the hole, and soon enough, yes, he felt little nipples on his tail. So he was excited. "This is working. I'm going to be fed." So he sat, and he sat, and he decided, "I can't really feel my tail anymore, but I feel like I've got quite a nice catch. So I'm going to do what Mr. Fox said." So he stood up, and he twisted really hard. And you know what happened? His tail was stuck in the ice. So not only did he end up having to go back hungry, but in pain. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Dawn. That was definitely full of biophilia, a lot of love for the animals there. Thank you for that. We do have a guest today, Eva Keller. We're thankful that you're here today. Hope you enjoy being with us and that you will come back again at some point too after you've seen how fun we are. Our next speaker is Jim Adams. He has enjoyed serving as area governor and division governor twice in Lexington, Kentucky, in Toastmasters, and along the way has maintained his willingness to share his passion and skills with others outside of Toastmasters. In pursuit of that personal mission, he shares a few secrets of his success as he has learned along the way, and proposes a 21st century application to the 19th century discovery in learning. Please help me welcome the president of Bluegrass Toastmasters, Jim Adams.
Thank you very much, everybody. I want to start out basically letting you know how I came across this as an idea. My dad, who lived in a different town than me, had some computer problems about, we'll say 15 years ago. And I told him in order to fix his printer, he had to stick a disk into the drive and it would load a driver. So I talked him through it over the phone. What ended up happening, though, is he called me back and he said, "It didn't work. I stuck it in and it's not doing it." So I still had to drive about 30 miles to go help my dad load a driver on a printer. It's understandable, right? What he had ended up doing is he saw where he was supposed to put that DVD or that disc for the driver, and he stuck it in there, but it didn't go in very, very easily. So he pushed a little bit harder, and then he pushed a little bit harder, and he pushed a little bit harder, and finally he got it into the computer. But what he ended up doing was wedging it between the two drive bays. There's a long open little line in between the two drive bays, which he thought that's where it goes. So I had to disassemble his computer and then pull it out and then make this thing work. Bottom line is, I don't want to be that old man in the 21st century that does not know how to put the crystal in the holodeck hypercube in order to make my cup of coffee and have to have my son come and disassemble the whatever contraption it is of the day. So it's very important that we stay on top of technology. On the other side of my family line, I've got a son who's also going into engineering as I did. He's 18. And one thing that I wanted to share with him is the forgetting curve. This is the main thing that I can share with him. I don't have to know calculus 4 anymore. I already went through that and purged that from my memory banks a long time ago. But one thing I can always remind him on a text message is don't forget the forgetting curve. Don't forget the memory curve. And I want to talk to you guys today about that and how we can apply it in this club and for anyone else that's interested in just being a continuing learner in society, especially back to my primary point, keeping up with technology, because there's so much to learn. How do we maintain being able to learn stuff at such a fast pace these days? So the forgetting curve, I'd like to see a show of hands if anyone's even heard of the forgetting curve. Can I see a show of hands for anyone that's heard of the forgetting curve? Okay, so just a few of you have. What I want to do is explain to you that the forgetting curve came about from someone that in 1885 did a study, and let's see if I can get that up here. There we go. The thing that he discovered back in 1850 was that we do not learn and do not forget linearly. People might think that we forget on a linear curve over time, but we actually forget a lot of information faster than we really realize. If you look at the numbers on this graph, you lose half of what you know within the first 20 minutes. And if you look after 9 hours, you're down to 25%. The forgetting curve is more exponential and not linear. That was from a study done in 1850 and corroborated during other times in the past to verify. This guy asked people to memorize 13 words and hopefully successfully remember those 13 words in a list. If they do it twice, then you write it down, and you also see how that's affected over time. You can see that you do lose a lot of information in the short course of a day. So the forgetting curve and the learning curve are super important when it comes to learning. And if you're studying for an exam, this is something that you should be definitely aware of. Let's say, for example, you have a 1-hour class and you only have 2 hours to study for a test coming up in a month. There is an optimal time for studying that will allow you to retain about 90% of that information. So what I want to do is just share with you some of the rules of thumb. Do not get caught up in the specifics, the specific hours and minutes and days. But one person that I did research on basically told me to remember the factor of 4. If you basically have a 1-hour meeting or a 1-hour study session, 4 of those units later, you should review it. So here's the math question. What's 4 times 4 hours? It's 4 hours. So 4 times 1 hour is 4 hours. So that's when you should review it. The next time you should review again is 4 units of that. So what is that? That's 4 hours times 4, which is 16 hours. The next time you should review it is what? 4 times that unit. So 16 times 4 is 64. Bottom line is, if you study something for an hour during the day, you should review it that night, and you should review it the next day. That covers the very short time frame, and people don't realize there's a curve. They just think, okay, it's just proper to study. But then when should you study it again after that? The suggestion based on this information is that you should study it in 4 days, and then you should study it again in about 2 weeks, and then you should further study it again in about 2 months. The beauty of this is if you follow this exponential curve as a reminder, you don't have to spend as much time studying because you're not starting from 50% of what you knew. You're starting at 90% of what you knew, and then you're refreshing that information back up to 95% to 100%, roughly. So it's kind of like if you're tapping a balloon and you wait longer before you tap it to make it pop back up to the same height. A lot more effort's got to happen if you wait 5 seconds to try to tap that balloon and keep playing with it. It's the same concept. You just need to make sure that you follow this exponential. So that being said, how is this something that's applicable? If you do some Google searching, you'll find that people that need to train sales forces have to incorporate this or have been incorporating this so that they continue being knowledgeable about their industry and knowledgeable about the things that they share with other people. This has ramifications both in our personal learning, both in if we have things that we need to sell, if you're in the sales department, or if you're an engineer and you need to convey new information. That being said, what I am proposing that we do is become our own alarm clocks following this to teach ourselves. Now, what I'm going to propose is basically utilizing some of the social network platforms to do this. If you want to get a word out about something, and you've got a very attentive recipient of your, say, Twitter feed, and you share something today, you share something tonight, you share something tomorrow, you share something in 4 days, you share something in 2 weeks, and they're paying attention, you've actually maximized their retention of the information that you've shared, and they don't realize that you are harnessing the concept of the forgetting curve. Now, will they actually be paying attention? No. That's why we continuously spend our time being bombarded with people that just continuously throw information at us. But that is the nature of the world. However, on our side, if we're going to benefit from our own learning as we try to promote something that we're promoting, why not spend our research time as we post following that memory curve? So, for example, if we send out an informational tweet today and another informational tweet tonight, and then we do some research and we follow that and we post that informational tweet in a day, and then we set up a calendar, we'd say we commit to ourselves that we're going to post another informational tweet in 4 days, we are actually training ourselves in the knowledge that we are conveying to other people in an optimum level. So forget the fact that they may not be watching. What we're doing is emphasizing the knowledge and the optimization of learning as we're trying to promote. So we're killing two birds with one stone. So my proposal is along those lines, and I'll go through a couple of really quick slides as I go down this list here. Let me go back to the forgetting curve. You'll notice that here's basically a summary of how if you repeat your reminding on an exponential curve, you'll maintain a higher percentage of the retention. Here's another example that you can find simply by Googling the forgetting curve. You'll find these, and I recommend that you do it. Also, if you follow this, you only have to spend about 10 minutes basically in studying. So back to the question, or my scenario earlier was, if you only have 2 hours and you've got a test in a month, when should you study? Well, you should study 1 hour the first time, 10 minutes tonight, 10 minutes tomorrow, 10 minutes in 4 days, and 10 minutes the night before, and you will probably remember much more than if you studied at the beginning and then crammed at the end. That's my point. So what I suggest, though, back on to the technology side, is that we implement Twitter for, say, our Facebook themes that we have for this particular meeting. If we utilize the theme of our meeting and we apply the forgetting curve, here's an example of what I would do, is I could post and remind to post on certain themes through the course of a month and have them fit very nicely in a calendar. And by doing this, we automate our process of getting the word out, and at the same time, we're educating ourselves in an optimal fashion. So that's what I wanted to share with everybody, and I'll open the floor to questions. So if anyone has a question, raise your hand. And if anyone doesn't, then what I'll do is suggest that the theme that we have for today, which I believe is breaking the rules, can be augmented in the public sphere of our club by emphasizing breaking the rules themes in the form of a tweet today, tonight, tomorrow, and in 4 days, and in 2 weeks. And just the research that we do along the themes from what we gather today, the information that we all gather today, we can educate ourselves on that theme and have it retained instead of, for example, a word of the day that we might not remember next week because we never use it again. This is how you can remember those words of the day. Thank you very much. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Jim. That was very interesting, and I'm sure that I've probably forgotten most of what you've already said already. As we move through our meeting today, I'm going to turn it over to Dawn, our general evaluator, to move on with the rest of the meeting. Dawn.
Thank you, Andrea. And at this point, I believe I'm going to ask our table topic master if he would do our table topics and get us started with that portion, and then we'll move on to the general evaluation. So, Rick, you are the table topic master today, is that correct?
Yeah, I am, and
Awesome.
it'll be my pleasure. Good afternoon, everyone. All right, table topics, as we all know, are to have some fun. And what came into my mind is today is the first day, well, not the first day, but it is spring. And it feels like the first day here in New England because we don't have snow coming. We have a little rain, which is fabulous. Is there a reason why I'm not featured on the, am I featured on the screen? Because I'm not in mine. Okay. Just see. All right. So I've been listening to a lot of XM radio the past few days, and one of the things they've been talking about are proms. This is something in the springtime, and a lot of people, they found that actually end up marrying their prom date. My question for you, for the first person, did you attend your junior prom? And do you remember your prom date for the junior prom? What was special about it? Dawn, can you answer that one?
Well, you must have seen my head shaking like, oh yeah, and my eyes rolling. I do remember. So thank you for this question, Table Topics Master. I do remember my junior prom. My date was a year younger than me, a sophomore. And he was so excited to go to the junior prom with me that he actually went to the junior prom with me with a fever of like 104 degrees. Why would somebody do this? I don't know. So the whole night during our spring fling, I'm trying to both entertain myself, make sure he's comfortable, and stay the heck away. Because the only thing I didn't want to do for the next 3 or 4 days was to be sick myself. So I do remember this. And I remember feeling in that space of between nurturing and between, you know what, it's time to get out of here. So back to you, Rick. Thank you.
What a great little story about your prom. I remember my junior prom. Somebody asked me, I went with her, and afterwards we all went to someone's house and started talking about things like current events. I'm going, this is a prom? All right. My next question. When we get into college, spring, wow. We're looking at the end of the school year. We're looking at the beginning of something new. What was it that excited you when spring was approaching your life in your college years? And why don't we bring that one to, let's see, how about Eve? Would you like to participate on that one?
Happy to participate. Thanks for asking. During college, I was in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I often looked forward to spring break. Every year I participated in spring break, always planned a trip. I'm a big traveler, so I like to plan my travel well in advance. And I went to school for teaching, so even during teaching, I was excited for spring break. Had very many memorable spring breaks, most often in Florida. Tennessee wasn't very far from Florida. I was born in Hollywood, Florida, and I still have a lot of family there in Ocala, Florida. Also, as spring approached, I was very excited because my birthday was then coming. Summer was June, was my birthday. So after spring break, then I got to celebrate Memorial Day, and then soon after that, got to celebrate my birthday. So I love life. I am definitely a biophiliac, and I pursue traveling and happiness and joy in everything that I try to do. I appreciate new experiences and new people, and I'm happy to be here with you all today. Back to you, Table Topics Master.
Thank you so much for participating, and a wonderful answer. My next question is, spring is the renewal of life. As you've just told us, it's something very, very special. It's when the grass turns green again, the trees start budding, the birds come back to life. What part of spring really touches you? Is it just the melting of snow and the cleaning up, if you have snow where you are? Or is it seeing the birds coming back and singing and all these beautiful things? Doug, would you like to answer that one for us?
Thank you, Rick. Yes, one of the things that I'm very excited about for spring is something that's coming up just in a couple of weeks. May is a grand time for birds migrating north again from their southern homes. And there is a great, and my wife and I love to watch birds, you know, do the birding thing. There's a great place on the Great Lakes, on Lake Erie, called McGee Marsh, which is in the spring one of the best places for birding in the entire country or continent. Because what happens is all kinds of birds, particularly the small warblers and songbirds that are flying north into Canada, well, they'll come and rest at the lakefront on the south side before they have to make that grand trek over the water. And so it is a wonderful place to see all kinds of different species of birds, all these pretty little colors of birds that come out and hang out at the lake for just a short time before moving on. And you can spend a day just walking through this beautiful park with boardwalks all over and looking into the trees and over the marsh and seeing all kinds of birds. It's a great opportunity for taking photos. And this has been a pilgrimage that my wife and I do every year, and we're looking forward to our next trip coming up in a couple of weeks. Back to you, Mr. Table Topics.
Thank you. My next question. Spring also brings a lot of rain. Rain is so important because if we don't have it, we don't get the May flowers. Does rain depress you? Does it excite you? Does it help your hair grow? What is it about springtime and rain? How does that make you feel, Pamelah?
Who's going to time me?
Well, I can do that.
Okay.
Go for it.
All right. So I live in the desert. There is no rain. I think it's rained, maybe 3 times this year, maybe. So for us, spring actually means today the temperature is going to be 100 degrees. So it's not like it's really something I get too excited about. I actually like fall and winter here in the desert because the temperatures are lovely and there's the potential of rain. Rain is, the good thing about when it rains here in the desert is there is a mountain that I just found out on Tuesday last week is 10,394 feet high or something, but it's over 10,000 feet. It's the second tallest mountain apparently in the country, right, Andrea? Isn't that what she said last week? The San Jacinto Mountain at the edge of Palm Springs. And it snows. When it rains down here in the valley, it snows up there. And I love looking at the snow. And then there's a set of mountains, San Gregorio mountains across the freeway that also get snow. So that's what I like about the rain, is the snow that it puts on the mountains around and the views. Last year it rained a lot and snowed a lot, so I have lots of great pictures from, I'm a photographer also, a lot of great pictures from that, which made me really happy last year. But this year, very minimal rain, and I'm not that excited about the 100-degree weather, I can just tell you. Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Well, thank you so much for a wonderful answer. I don't know if I'm jealous or whatever about not having any rain. I think that's a pretty good thing, I suppose. Madam Toastmaster, do we have time for more? Okay.
Yes, we do.
Excellent, thank you. Spring is a time for lovers. A lot of people become engaged during the November, December period of time. And in April, they're in full force of working on creating a marriage and whatever happens from there. What experiences, unusual experiences, may you have had in the springtime that have lasted you a lifetime? Jim, would you like to answer that question?
I'd be happy to. Thanks very much. My attention turned directly to animals in the springtime because just recently I saw a bunch of bunny rabbits just jumping and juggling themselves, it appeared, off of my deck, the way they were jumping over each other. But the most memorable time that I remember is we had these beautiful peacocks in our backyard when I lived up in Lexington, Kentucky. 2 males that were sitting there showing off their plumage to the one single female that was in our backyard, and the coffee table was right there. I got the full view of their rituals. Just a few days prior, though, we had bought a new TV, and we still had the box in the backyard and the styrofoam containers. And what the most impressive part about this ritual was that the female peacock decided it was more important to eat the styrofoam packaging than to pay attention to these poor 2 guys sitting there just showing off their plumage. She would get up once in a while, turn around and look at them both, but then go back to eating styrofoam instead. And I don't know really what to make of her personality, but it is definitely a memory that is stuck in my brain about springtime for a long time. Thank you very much, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Oh boy, if this weren't a Toastmasters event, I would definitely have an answer for that one. But I think I'll keep that to myself. I've been talking about all the beauty of spring, and it's one of my favorite seasons. But let's just shift a little bit. What's your favorite season, and why? Is it because the spring brings new life? Summer is warm and beautiful. The fall is colorful and special. Or the winter because we like to play in the cold. Tricia, what is it about, which season really grabs you?
Thank you, Table Topics Master. My favorite season is the fall. And not just because I was born in October, but I really, really love the scents and the foliage changes. My husband and I often drive from Pennsylvania to Canada and watch the foliage on the whole drive up to the falls. This has been a trip that we've taken almost every year since we got married, and it's something I look forward to. Seeing the tree changes from Pennsylvania to California to Canada, and just the richness of the colors, and there's just that special smell of fall that I just can't put my finger on, but it's the most wonderful scent that there is. It also brings back a lot of fond memories of home. When I would visit my parents over fall break, my mother would always make my favorite dish, and I'd always be happy to come home and have it with my family. So that's why fall is my favorite season. Back to you, Table Topic Master.
Thank you. Thank you so much. My next question. Spring also brings a lot of work because winter is a season that has a little bit of destruction to it. In the spring, we need to clean things up, and spring cleaning, that's what we call it, spring cleaning. Is this something you enjoy doing, your spring cleaning? Something you hate the thought of? Andrea, what's your thoughts of spring cleaning?
Since we don't really have a spring in Palm Springs, I clean whenever I want to clean. However, when I was a child, my mother liked to spring clean once a week, which meant everything in the house got moved and dusted, every window got cleaned, every floor got vacuumed, even the beds got moved once a week. I hate cleaning because of that. I hate the sound of vacuum cleaners. I don't like the smell of Windex. Please don't ever open a bottle of bleach or anything like that around me. I hate it. We have a cleaning lady come in and do that, and I leave for the day because I hate it so much. So I don't really like spring cleaning. I don't think that it's fun. I think there's nothing valuable in it for me. Occasionally I get a little bee in my bonnet and want to go in and clean out my closet. That's as much cleaning as I ever accomplished in my life. I also will do the dishes occasionally. I like to get my husband to help do that because I really used up all my cleaning skills as a child, and I never want to do those again. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you. That's good answer. Well, I believe everybody has had an opportunity for a table topic. Thank you so very much for participating. And now I'd like to turn the meeting back over to our Toastmaster, General Evaluator, who turned it to me.
General Evaluator.
General Evaluator, then Dawn. Please take
Awesome.
over.
Thank you. Table topics is one of my favorite parts of all of our meetings. I just love it. Okay, so at this point, I am going to ask for our timers report. Can you do that, Pamelah?
Yes, I can. I think I qualified. Everybody else qualified in table topics. Tricia's speech was 7 minutes and 1 second. Jim's speech was 9:43 for the first part, and I clocked 10:16, but I turned it off for a little while we were waiting to see if there were any questions. So probably somewhere around 10:30 for the whole thing.
Awesome. Thank you.
Welcome.
And can I let's see, what other reports do I need to look at?
Me.
Grammarian. Is
yes.
that right? Okay.
That's me.
Go ahead, Andrea.
We all did a very good job today. Our favorite words, though, filler words, are so, and and. We all use those, except for Eve, you didn't use them, and I'm very impressed. You also are the only one besides me who used the word of the day, and so I'm excited about that. That's all I have to report today.
Whoops. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Andrea. And I am going to use the word of the day in my evaluation of Jim's speech, which I think I'm going to just start out doing that. So then ask for, is that okay with you, Doug? No, you know what? I'm going to have you do yours first. And then
You can go first if you want. It doesn't matter.
All right, maybe I will, because I'm kind of on that train of thought. Because in Jim's speech, I think, Jim, you did a really good job of creating a technical presentation that is a proposal. That was your purpose of your speech, was to give a proposal that had a clear viewpoint at the beginning of it, supported by clear and logical content that connected to the audience, and that, kind of ended up with this big offering and big buy-in, like, let's do this. You did a good job, and I appreciate it. Now, I have a couple of suggestions. I understood what you were talking about because I've actually studied this. I have studied learning languages, although I don't know any, but my children are very good at having multiple languages that they know. So I understand the learning and forgetting curve. So I would have liked to have maybe had a story or had some buy-in from the audience kind of before you jumped into the content, just to have a connection, like, where are we learning, or where are we struggling to learn something, and how can we use this as you go through. So kind of help us, like, orient ourselves to your content before you gave it all to us. I appreciated all of the background that you gave us. A couple of points, and mostly this is going to be points of improvement, Jim. I mean, only because I think we're an advanced club, and I think this is worth sharing. You said this guy, and I don't know which guy you were talking about. Like, so there's a point in there that you said, this guy said this, and I was like, which guy? So that was there. And when you said, so this is my word of the day, my biophilia went into flare up when you said killing 2 birds with 1 stone. I just had to say that. Because I would have enjoyed no birds being killed. And as far as your proposal, I got at the end that you were proposing that we use kind of this learning curve understanding with social media. You used the word technology at the beginning. If you kind of would have helped us see that it was about using our social media technology and with the club, like right from the beginning, I think that would have given us a bigger bridge, like of a buy-in, like let's lean in and listen a little bit more. So maybe just do that little tweak. I liked it. I like the content. And I say, yes, we should do what you did. I want to see your actual proposal, maybe inside of our Facebook group so we can actually do that. So I appreciate that. And at this time, I'm going to pass the meeting over to Doug so he can do his evaluation of Tricia.
Good afternoon once again, fellow Toastmasters. Tricia's project today was from the Storytelling Advanced Manual. She was telling a folk tale. And in fact, she told us 2 shorter folk tales, which tied together a bit. They showed her biophilia in that they were all about animals. I think she did a great job in terms of telling the story. I found the stories to be interesting. She painted a great picture in her descriptive language. And I enjoyed the tales. I thought they were great. And one thing that really shone was her vocal variety. She had a great use of voice, both in terms of pacing, but also style, using different voices to represent different characters, and particularly just showing a great deal of excitement and energy at the right times, but also giving that pause at times when it was really effective. So that was really well done, and I quite enjoyed it. I think the big area where I would challenge her is in terms of the message. I think that she did a great job in telling stories. But as a folk tale, I think generally we want to have a message connected to it. And with the first story with the squirrel getting greedy and overloading his mouth and losing his tail because of it, I think the message was fairly easy to see in that we should not be greedy. The second story, while I enjoyed it, I wasn't quite so sure that it carried the same message. I think that it could have been crafted slightly differently to make the bear seem greedy and waiting too long to pull his tail out, and therefore it got caught and frozen over. But I found that wasn't conveyed well in the way the story was told. It seemed like the bear, it didn't really know what he was doing, and he just kind of left it too long, as opposed to trying to get more fish deliberately. And I think when it comes to a folk tale, it's always a good idea to state that conclusion clearly at the end, saying the moral of the story is that we shouldn't be greedy. For a folktale, I think that's a good one. For other types of stories, that perhaps can be more implied. But I certainly enjoyed the stories. You told them very well. You created a great picture that really kept me interested in listening to the story. So overall, well done. Just maybe make the message a little bit more clear at the end. Back to you, Madam G.
Thank you, Doug. That was wonderful. And at this time, I'm going to do a general evaluation of the meeting and evaluation of the evaluators. And I'd like to say, first of all, Andrea, I think you did a wonderful job of being our Toastmaster. Thank you so much. I know it's kind of hard sometimes when you have the tablet, when you're using a tablet, and we had a guest, and you did really well. And it also kind of reminded me that we really have to work together to support each other. I sent you a message. I didn't know if you saw her first, but I'm hoping if I'm in that same situation that you would do the same for me, because we don't always get to see everybody. But you did a really good job, so I appreciate it. I love the words and your grammarian's report and your grammarian word too. I feel like I know a little bit more about myself through that. everyone, just a great job with our meeting. And Rick, you are a rock star at Table Topics. I just get so much out of your enthusiasm, what you bring to this club, what you bring to all of us. And, you know, the topic was spring fling, which, you know, I mean, I would have, in my perfect world, like, we're always talking about, you know, maverick leadership and what we can do to be mavericks. But this, to me, felt like this was the essence, like some kind of an essence of, you know, who we are. And, you know, Andrea's feedback on how she hates cleaning. And I'm like, yes, we're soul sisters. I mean, you got to something that's in us about what makes us mavericks, right? Like, so I appreciate that. Even how we feel about spring and stuff. So that was really good. And Doug, you are a great evaluator and somebody that I can honestly learn from, because I was listening to myself in my evaluation. I know Lori in a previous meeting had mentioned, do your evaluations in the third person, which seems for some reason to be very hard or difficult for me lately. You did that really well. So you gave a great example of how that's done accurately. So I can look up and use you as a role model and, you know, sort of like a mentor and like somebody who does that very excellently. And I appreciate that. I do have to say though, that I might have suggested that Tricia created her speech title to be A Tale of Two Tales, because there were two tales in both stories. The tale of the squirrel, I guess. Tracy, was that a squirrel or a bunny? I don't remember, but
It was the squirrel, yes.
the squirrel. So the tale of the squirrel and the tail of the bear, and there were two foxes. So there could have been, like, you know, some kind of connection there that you might have offered to help her, you know, connect the two stories. But your evaluation was so right on, and I know that my tale of two tales is a really big stretch. You would have had to stretch that to make it work, but it could have worked. So I enjoyed everybody's speeches today too. And at this time, do we have the timers report for our evaluations, Pamelah?
Yes, you were 2 minutes and 51 seconds, and Doug was 3 minutes and 3 seconds.
Ooh, nice. Very good. And do you want to follow up, Andrea, with the rest of the meeting's grammarian report, or at least the word of the day part? Because I know I used it. Tried to.
Well, both you and Doug did use the word of the days. Yay, good job. Both of you and used some filler words again. And so you had more of those than Doug did. You actually had quite a few of them this time, which you didn't earlier in the meeting. So that's something that you might want to watch for. We all do it when we're kind of off the cuff. I know I do, but that's something we all need to watch for.
Yes, thank you. And I appreciate your feedback. It is important, and it's important for me to hear it from someone else like you. So I'd like to give the meeting back to you, Andrea, as our Toastmaster of the day. So I'm going to do that. And before we get going, we'll make sure that we hear from Eve. So back to you, Andrea.
Thank you. Eve, I'm going to direct a question to you. Thank you for coming. First off, I'd love to hear what you thought about the meeting and how you saw us on the videos. Anything that you have for feedback for us would be helpful. You're muted still.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Thanks for having me today. I found out from you, or about your group, from our district PR person. I'm in Indianapolis, and I'm in District 11, Division H, Area 82 is the one that I manage right now. So I'm an area director for Toastmasters. I actually did a few visits this morning, so just getting all of that. But I also participated on a panel for our spring conference a few years ago on virtual attendance and how older clubs could actually get and proceed with that, and the different capabilities that has, and how it would modify their club as having an in-person but also a virtual option if people couldn't attend. So I thought you guys did a great job as just being a virtual club, not having a location. I think we are going more in that direction. I think you did great with the timer on the chat. I thought that was very interesting. I didn't understand what you meant by maverick leadership or what it means to be an advanced Toastmaster. I don't know if there's limitations or boundaries to that and how long you need to be a Toastmaster. So I might want some more information about that for any future guests that you might have. I think the mission statement is great as you have it, but defining a little bit more about advanced and maverick would be helpful. But great meeting overall. Really impressed.
Thank you. That was very helpful. I appreciate that. Dawn, those are suggestions that you might want to keep for future reference. Eve, you might want to mute yourself at this point as I continue talking. We're almost at the end of our meeting. There is one thing this morning. I was looking through my communicating on video book, and I noticed this a lot today. That's why I'm going to bring it up. When we're talking on video, fast movement doesn't play well for everybody else because our cameras don't pick it up. And I noticed today there was a lot of fast movement. We need to all remember as we're speaking on camera that we want to move much slower as we do our movements. That's just something that, just a little tip that I was looking at this morning and thought it would be helpful for everybody to think about as we move forward in our club. Back to you, Dawn, our presiding officer.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. And Eve, I appreciate your feedback. It really means a lot to us as an advanced club, which we do require the CC to be completed before joining our club. That's the low bar. But we are full of DTMs. I don't know if you noticed that we have a few DTMs, past district governors. So we are kind of an advanced club that goes all the way to the sky. As far as maverick leadership, I mean, we are really trying to do things out of the box. That's it. Leadership that's out of the box, new, innovative. What can we do differently? How can we do it differently? And keep it exciting. We have people in our club that don't like to feel confined or trapped. And so we like to keep things at least interesting and moving forward. And what does that mean for each individual? That's what we're going to talk about a little bit next week on I'm seeding for joining next week. So you can be a part of the discussion that we'll do next week through my speech on that. And at this time, I am actually going to ask if we have any other comments about the meeting before I put the gavel down. Any from Pamelah? Did you raise your hand?
I did. I was confused about the theme of the day because I thought you had posted a theme and Jim spoke to that theme and Andrea had a theme that was a different theme. So I got confused about what the theme of the day is.
I missed it on the agenda, but it did match with my one matched with the topics for the day. So there were two different ones.
Okay, I just got confused about that. So
just so you all know, we just had a tiny earthquake here. Pamelah didn't feel it and I did. It's kind of fun. That's kind of how it works here. I'm closer to the mountains than she is, and the mountains are actually a fault line. So I get to feel those a little more than she would.
You're the San Andreas fault, yeah. I felt one a few days ago, one in Sky Valley, yeah.
Back to you, Dawn.
Awesome. Did we have any more questions? And I'm going to share the agenda. I should have done that at the beginning of the meeting, but it's right there if you wanted to click on that and see what our agenda looks like from week to week. Tricia, you had some comments. I see you're unmuted. Did you have something to say?
Oh, no, I was just preparing for your agenda.
All right. Super. So let me get that up. And well, before I get that up, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. So thank you very much, everyone, for coming. And I hope to see you back. And at this time, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Gavel down. And I'm going to go to...
stop recording.
Thanks.